Deepak Sharma was traveling 126 kilometers per hour in a 50 zone when he hit the victim with his car.
Can't have a circus without a Carney. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we're finding out that Anita Anand's husband has investments in the Confederation Bridge, the one that Mark Carney just cut tolls on. Their guaranteed income on that bridge. What do we see from this? A massive conflict of interest. Trudeau's back in the news and another Liberal department is getting slashed. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off with Shazzy Gully. Says the CNE just got 54,000 applications for 5,000 minimum wage gigs. Teens are lining up for hours. Young adults are applying to 1,000 plus jobs and hearing nothing back. Unemployment is at 8.8%. And what did the Liberals do to combat this? They brought in 1.4 million people this year. The Liberals are intentionally hurting Canadians' lives. Who voted for these people? I don't know. Eventually, Liberal Canadians who can't get jobs will put it together. We got an update here coming from Rebel News. So they've found out who threw in the smoke pow pow into the church where Sean Foyt was singing in the church. It's this guy, as you can see here, this moment here. Now, I don't know who this guy is. He does look like the nerdy younger brother to the Hulk. Aside from that, he's an Antifa type. That's all we really know. Forget smoke bombs. He needs to go to prison for those bans. Only the Hulk can pull off those pants. Let's get real. Moving ahead here, we got this one from Global Politics. It says almost 600 foreign nationals with criminal records due to be deported are missing, says the CBSA. Oh, where did they go? We don't know. And with that, we've got Rebel News doing some great journalism here. They put up hidden cameras on the border between Canada and America, and they've caught so many people sneaking across the border. It says here in 4 days, they filmed 34 people crossing illegally, mainly Haitians trying to sneak into Canada before Trump deports them.
We find finally an ID. Total price, 80.
500,000 Haitians living in the U.S., setting them up for potential deportation.
So they're coming from Miami. Majority of it is Haitian.
We will strengthen our border security with 1,000 more CBSA officers.
In this report, we will show you that the border between the United States and Canada is being flooded with illegal migrants. We've got the proof, and we are going to show you.
This is a good video. It's about 22 minutes long. So here they are. Some of them see the cameras. Lock this border down. I highly recommend checking this out. As always, all this stuff is linked up down below. Moving ahead, we've got this one. Look at this. Carney government is expected to cut women and gender equality Canada's budget by 81%. Wow. You just don't know what's coming every day. It's a curveball every single day. This being reported by the very much liberal The Hill Times. It's being leveled. Advocates worried about potential 81% cut to women and gender equality Canada's budget by 2028. Women's advocates call the department 3-year forecast extremely shocking and disproportional for the small ministry. The level of support will be radically reduced, says Catherine Scott, who isn't holding her breath for the fall budget. So it goes on to say here, by 2027-28, the staffing levels will drop from 444 full-time equivalents this fiscal year to 254 on the 3-year horizon, according to department's latest plan. This is hilarious. They're cutting all of the departments that voted for Mark Carney. I don't know what the strategy is here, but this is funny as a conservative to watch. It's about time. Still don't believe it, though. These are conservative policies being used by a liberal. That's what's so weird about this. Like, what is Mark Carney doing here? Moving ahead, we got this one from Blacklock's Reporter. It says, Prime Minister Mark Carney yesterday announced lower tolls on Prince Edward Island's Confederation Bridge without disclosing how many millions in new subsidies will be paid to compensate the operator. Foreign Minister Anita Anand's husband is managing director of an investors group that held 34% share in the Strait Crossing Development Inc., one of the most profitable toll bridge operators in the country. There it is. It always comes down to profits with these goblins and goons. Always up to no good, these scoundrels. Carney's office would not say how much taxpayers would be charged to compensate Strait Crossing Development Inc. for lower tolls. A 2016 budget report estimated the bridge operator's net margin on annual operations was 54%. Prime Minister's office would not clarify if Foreign Minister Anand recused herself from discussions on bridge subsidies. Anand's husband, John Knowlton, is Senior Managing Director with OMERS Infrastructure, an Ontario Municipal Employees Pension Fund investor that held 34%. Under a 35-year contract that expires in 2032, the Development of Transport guarantees operators of the Confederation Bridge a minimum of $13.9 million a year in toll revenues, with additional annual subsidies indexed to 3/4 the inflation rate. Subsidies paid to 2014 totaled $951 million, with a minimum $1.28 billion to be paid by taxpayers by 2032 when the bridge reverts to public ownership. You got to wonder too if there's other things on the docket, and that's why Carney really reeled her in, because she was out. She said she was quitting. She was done with the Liberal Party. She was going back to her life, and Carney reeled her back in. So I wonder if there's more projects tied to Omer's infrastructure. I've heard that name before. They're always serving their self-interest. And take a look at this. So this is a video coming from Surrey, BC. This video is 1 minute and 34 seconds long. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but you can just see it's tent after tent for literally 1.5 minutes straight. And as Ryan Garrettson points out here, government spends $1.1 billion on asylum seekers. That's actually 2.6 or it was $2.5 billion in asylum seekers when you include provincial money that was given as well. Our government is helping asylum seekers. They're bringing in people, and our own citizens are sleeping in tents. We are in the darkest times of Canadian history where our government has completely betrayed us, intentionally trying to hurt its own citizens. I mean, this is proof of it. Look at this. It's just, this is only half the video. This just goes on and on and on and on and on. We're dangerously close to becoming an African country, completely corrupt, with a corrupt government, with authoritarian rule. They're trying to keep it under wraps right now. But the truth is right here. It's all right here. Our government doesn't like us. You think the governments, both provincial and federal, would be prioritizing getting these people jobs and housing so they'd be paying taxes to, the government. Clearly the government doesn't care about that. They have another agenda. Could that agenda have something to do with this? Brookfield and Birch Hill to buy majority stake in mortgage provider First National. Brookfield and Birch Hill acquiring 62% in First National at $48 per share. This is some huge news because Brookfield is already positioning itself on dominating the housing market. I think this is the plan all along. Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau have been rolling this out for a long time. I showed on the channel the other day, Seguin Canada, which continues to operate as Canada's largest private sector residential mortgage insurer. They've created a housing crisis in this country, and now they're profiting from it. This here is just another piece in the puzzle, so I'll be digging into this later, but this is breaking news as we speak. Moving ahead, we've got Justin Trudeau back in the news. Apparently he's been spotted here with Katy Perry. I can sum up how this conversation went. It was, oh really? Tell me some more. Apparently having dinner in Montreal. And not only that, Justin Trudeau out in the mountains in Switzerland. You can see here mountaineering with his son. This thing here is a Via Ferrata, but Trudeau, if you want to be a man, go free solo, detach yourself from the cable there. Do it like a real mountaineer, Trudeau. As Mr. Bench pointing out, you notice he's got a Stephen Colbert shirt. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Trudeau enjoying a summer in Switzerland with his son while Canada's absolutely crumbling. Thanks for nothing, Trudeau. With the looming 35% tariffs we see coming to Canada, will we see a bump in softwood lumber tariffs that were 8%? Last year, Biden bumped this up to 14.5%. Will we see this jump an extra 20%? Our timber industry is getting slammed.
Meanwhile, on the trade front in this country, some in British Columbia's forestry sector are calling the U.S.'s decision to raise duties on Canadian softwood lumber unjustified and harmful. As the CBC's Akshay Kulkarni tells us, it's the latest blow to the province's struggling forestry industry.
For BC's lumber industry, the hits just keep coming. Mills around the province have been closing in recent years. Thousands of jobs have been lost. And now the US Commerce Department has decided to raise anti-dumping duties on Canadian lumber. They will go up to 20.56%. When added with other incoming tariffs, lumber importers south of the border could be paying almost 35% in extra taxes, double what it was just a year ago.
British Columbia is the second largest exporter of softwood in the entire world, second to Russia. This is a key part of our economy.
Parmar says the move will lead to mill closures and layoffs.
We're already seeing mills closing all over the place. And a side note, if they're going to have someone reading out a lot of this stuff, they should have very clean English. Clearly, there must be someone in the building with cleaner English. And this is not a dig on this guy who's clearly from South Asia. If you're reading out a bunch of stuff on national TV, you should have very clean English with no accent. And it doesn't matter what accent it is.
He says that it's not just BC's forestry industry that's impacted, but also the average U.S. home builder.
They're going to need our lumber, they're going to need our trees, and they're going to pay more because of this, dumb policy.
The minister is calling for the federal government to prioritize softwood lumber in trade talks with US President Donald Trump. That's a call that BC forestry groups are echoing.
We have met with Minister LeBlanc, and we've had productive discussions with him, and we were provided assurances that, softwood lumber is a priority in their discussions with the U.S.
Nick Quiday says that tariffs aren't the only thing on producers' minds, as Trump has announced a federal investigation into lumber imports, citing national security.
There is also a Section 232 investigation that's sort of looming as well, and so it could have outsized impacts on the sector.
Here in BC, forestry producers are calling for the province to make timber production more competitive and prevent jobs from being lost to the US by cutting red tape and activating timber sales.
If we can increase the harvest in British Columbia to get logs to mills in a way that is, more similar to some of our historic levels, that will bring more than $300 million to the provincial government as well to help address the deficit situation we're in.
The forest minister says he's working to find buyers outside the US for BC's lumber as it continues to deal with attacks from all sides. Akshay Kulkarni, CBC News, Vancouver.
The logging industry has been getting annihilated for years because David Eby and the NDP, who've been in charge for a while, don't care about it. Instead, they care about clean, green power that comes only from Indigenous-owned companies. So what they did not report is Trump opened up 59 million acres of national forest to logging to increase U.S. soft lumber production. Trump might wean America off of Canada's timber and cut down their own trees. Moving ahead here, we've got BC Minister of Housing here, Ravi Kahlon, says he's not optimistic about negotiations with the US. He's asked specifically if we should be making a deal with Trump, even if it means we get tariffs. And I should note too, this guy, Ravi Kahlon, he's a dirtbag. He bought 3 properties with our tax money for the government in Prince George a few years ago from the same guy who bought all those properties a year beforehand and then sold them to the government for a total of a $10 million profit. There's wafts of corruption around this guy.
That even if we find a path forward, who knows what will happen the next month or the month after that when the president gets onto True Social and puts something new out.
What is a good path forward? Do you think that Canada should sign a deal that includes any of Trump's tariffs?
Well, I think that that's a challenging question, but I would say for us, from a British Columbia perspective, softwood lumber has to be part of that. I know that across the country, there's a lot of focus on auto workers. And in British Columbia, we're thinking about auto workers as well, because whatever is good for Ontario is also good for British Columbia. But you got to think about British Columbia and softwood, because BC provides the second most amount of softwood lumber to the United States from any country in the world. Now, I'm not talking about just provinces. I'm talking about we're second overall if you were comparing all the countries that are producing softwood and sending it to the U.S. So it's going to have a sizable impact on communities here. I'm really...
No kidding. I'm sure this is news to most people, because when have you heard David Eby talk about softwood lumber, fighting for softwood lumber in BC? He doesn't care. He's destroyed this industry. And you got one of his goons here buying a bunch of properties in Prince George, the original owner only buying them a year beforehand, pocketing over $10 million in profit. These guys are all corrupt to the core.
Concern for working families, and that has to be a key part of it. But again, I understand that it's going to be a challenge. That's why the negotiations have to be one part, but the things that we need to do to strengthen our local economies, that has to be the central piece, I think, as we go forward.
I thought blocking all the red states' stumbling juice was a centerpiece going forward. David Eby insulting Trump any which way he can. Do you think that's a good way to get a deal? Next up, we've got a story here of a guy striking and ending a woman with his car at 126 kilometers per hour in a 50-kilometer zone. Let me guess, he's going to get a lighter sentence than Simieritsch and Chris Barber.
Family and friends of Alexandria Wortman bursted into tears when the details surrounding her death were read aloud in court. An agreed statement of facts says Cpac Sharma was traveling 126 kilometers per hour in a 50 zone when he hit the victim with his car. Sharma pleaded guilty to criminal negligence causing death on Thursday, along with 2 other counts of fleeing the scene following a collision. Crown Attorney William Mathers told reporters doorbell footage submitted by nearby residents played a big role in the case.
Obviously, the speed speaks for itself. That's a 50-kilometer-hour zone, and he accelerated from 0 to 126 kilometers an hour and struck Miss Wortman with his motor vehicle when he was going that fast down Jubilee.
On the night of January 27th, Sharma, who admitted the following details, rear-ended another vehicle while driving on Jubilee Road. He then fled the scene, striking the other driver in the hip. The 32-year-old began driving at a speed of 126 kilometers per hour. eventually crashing into Wortman as she was crossing a marked four-way stop from Vernon Street onto Jubilee. Sharma continued erratically down Jubilee as Wortman was wedged into his windshield for several blocks before crashing with a third car near Roby Street. Wortman then fell from the windscreen onto the ground as witnesses scrambled to provide aid. She died later that evening in hospital. Sharma attempted to run when police arrived and was said to have been physically combative, occasionally breaking into giggles while he was being arrested.
This guy's a sick monster. He should be put into a dark hole for the rest of his existence. Giggling and laughing about running into someone with his car. This guy's a menace to society. 50 years in jail, throw away the key.
A manslaughter charge was dropped as part of Sharma's plea deal. He's currently on house arrest and will appear back in court for his sentencing on September 22nd. Mitchell Bailey, Global News.
If this guy doesn't get anything less than 30 years in jail, there should be serious uproar in this country. As long as he wasn't out protesting government overreach, what does it matter with the liberal politicians that allow this to continue? This will stop when it's a liberal politician walking across the street when that guy's speeding down the road at 126 kilometers an hour, and only then. It won't stop until then.